Hi, Scott Schilling here, and I want to share a quick story with you. I call this the anatomy of a stroke. The reason is because it's a description of what I just lived through. I'm so phenomenally blessed to be here, virtually unaffected by what was a very significant ischemic stroke, December 14th. So let me just share with you a little bit of what happened. I had been having a headache, low grade, probably a 2 or 3, for 7 to 10 days or so, and couldn't really understand it. Nothing seemed to eliminate it. It was just this nagging little headache. Kept on taking over-the-counter medications to try to get it to go away, and it never really went away. Ended up flying to California to do shoot a bunch of TV shows was the intention. We were going to be out there for 6 or 7 days shooting TV shows. And even on the flight, normally I would pick out a book and start to read, and actually I did. I read about a page and a half, and I said, I just don't feel like reading. Now that's very much unlike me. I all of a sudden just started not feeling great over the first day there. I didn't feel terrible, and I didn't feel right. It just wasn't great. We did a lot of the work the first couple of days out in California. In fact, we went to Matthew Barnett's Dream Center and his Angelus Temple for church services Sunday morning. After that, we went to the Dream Center and took a tour, and it was just an amazing event. And even though it was so amazing, both the church service and the Dream Center itself, I just wasn't feeling right. Now, as a group, we decided to go to Universal City Walk to have lunch. And as we got off the shuttle at Universal City Walk, I took about 8 or 9 steps, and all of a sudden I couldn't. I literally could not put one foot in front of the other. Everything started to become very disoriented. And fortunately, there was a railing to my right. I grabbed that railing. Other fortunate things, I was traveling with about 7 people going over to this lunch. 3 of those people were doctors. One of them asked immediately as I stopped and grabbed the railing, they said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I don't think so." And they said, "What's going on?" I said, "I have no clue." And they were looking at me. 4 of the 5 symptoms of strokes had set in. I was pale. I was cold. I was clamming. Man, I was sweating profusely all at the same time. I was disoriented. Things were just not going well. And one of them said, "What's your phone number?" And so I rattled off my phone number very quickly and said, "Wait a second, why do you ask?" "Oh, no reason." Well, they were starting to give me cognitive tests. Now, very fortunately, they grabbed a chair, they sat me down, allowed me to kind of recoup, got the blood flow going again. And I could see that they were concerned. They were talking amongst themselves, but quite frankly, I was just trying to regroup at that point. Fortunately, they took me back to the hotel, but on the shuttle back, all of a sudden I started to feel like I was going to be physically sick. I was going to vomit. And how embarrassing. I didn't want to do that on the shuttle. So we got back to the hotel. We quickly rushed up to the 23rd floor. I gave them my key and I said, "You better open the door. I'm going to be sick." And literally, as I walked into the room, luckily I got to the bathroom and started vomiting, unfortunately. Now that's the 5th sign of a stroke. I didn't know where that came from. All of a sudden it just came on. Well, fortunately they laid me in my bed, told me to just relax for a moment, and put my phone next to me with their phone number. They said they're going to go down to the lobby, and if anything changes in your body, please make sure that you call us. Well, literally I laid there for just a couple minutes, and from my top of my arm, all of a sudden I could just feel it working down my arm. That literally, I totally lost the feeling in my arm. It just all became numb. And as I went to hit the button to call my friends, there was a knock on the door. It was hotel security. They were coming in because they had already called an ambulance. The ambulance was on its way, and they wanted to assure me, they wanted to start that entire process. Now, basically, they did an amazing job. The LA County Fire Department came, ran me through my paces, started hooking me up to all sorts of things. And I wasn't overly cognizant at that point. I was there, but I wasn't there, if you know what I'm saying. Well, they took me into the emergency at Providence St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank, California. Nothing but props for that hospital. Everybody did an amazing job. And literally, they started running me through my paces. Well, over the next 4.5 hours or so, it seemed like I was given every test known to man. Chest x-rays, blood work, EKGs, CT scans, everything, you name it. Visual tests, memory tests, all sorts of different things. And the strange thing was, I passed every one of them. The blessing was, I passed every one of them. In fact, the CT scan was read by a neurologist. It happened to be a Sunday afternoon, so it was read remotely. And there was no sign of the damage at that point. Quite frankly, they were so responsive and did it so fast that they got to it before it actually showed. That's how quickly they were on top of it. That all being said, after about 4.5 or 5 hours of being in the emergency room, they released me. And they suggested that I had a massive migraine. That's what had been radiating the headaches. Neck tension. Now, I think we all knew that it was more than that. In fact, I know we all knew it was more than that. But we couldn't find anything that actually showed it. In fact, my friends said after the fact that they were praying that I would fail something so they would keep me in the hospital. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that I'm anything special. What I'm trying to suggest is God is that special, that He protected me through all this, and truly I was in His favor and His hands through this entire process. Well, that night I was laying there in bed in my hotel room, and the pain was excruciating. I knew something wasn't right, and I turned to the great physician. I turned to God and I said, God, what would you have me do? And very quietly, I just felt in my spirit, drop to your knees. And I literally slid out of bed in my hotel room, with my elbows up on my bed. And I started praying. Or I continued praying, should I say. I said, God, I've been teaching your plan and timing is perfect for the last couple of years now. I'm not going to pretend to understand this plan or this timing. Now, I don't think your plan is to call me home. And I don't think your plan is to maim me or disable me. So I'm choosing to believe that your plan is to wake me up. If so duly noted, you got my attention. And that I'm also supposed to use this event and this experience to serve and save myself and others, both physically and spiritually, from this point forward. And if that is in fact your will for me, I pray for your wisdom and guidance so that I do that appropriately. But if it's not your will for me, whatever your will for me, I'm great with. Just know that I'm here to serve you. And I slid back up into bed, and I was at total peace. The greatest peace I've ever been at in my life. The pain was gone, and all of a sudden, within minutes, I fell asleep. Well, I woke up the next morning, and again, remember, it was diagnosed as a migraine. Now, I can tell you it wasn't a migraine. It was a stroke. We all, I think, knew that, but we had things to do. So I literally showered, and as I was showered, the water tapping on the back of my head was sending sparks through my head. Not the way it's supposed to be. I knew something wasn't right, but I also knew that I was committed to the project we were there for. I was actually filming 3 TV show segments that day. Well, we filmed those segments. Now, just before I went on camera, I can assure you I was sitting there off to the side, very lethargic, feeling terrible. The producer even walked up to me and said, you know, when the camera rolls, we're going to need you, buddy. I said, don't worry about me, I'll be fine. And literally, when it came time to go on camera, I summoned the strength. Of course, I prayed a lot prior. I said, God, allow me to do your will here. Well, we filmed all those, and I went from there to the neurologist that had read the CT scan the day before. He had carved out room in his schedule for me. Well, I went there. I did strength tests. I was within all the um, ranges from strength. By the way, the vast majority of the feeling had come back into my left arm while I was in the emergency room the day before. 125 pounds of pressure on my right hand, 110 pounds on my left. The neurologist said that was within normal variation based on the fact that I'm right-handed versus left-handed. He went through all the same tests again. We couldn't find anything. His diagnosis that day was a trapped occipital nerve in the back, radiating headaches. But I think he knew that in fact it had been a stroke, and he absolutely demanded an MRI. Well, because it was now late Monday afternoon, we couldn't get into the MRI until Tuesday. Same thing, went straight to bed. Didn't feel great, extremely lethargic. I just kept on feeling worse and worse and worse. Well, Tuesday I went to another meeting. In fact, excused myself and said, gang, I've got to excuse myself. I've got to go get an MRI. Again, I'm not trying to do that because I'm so tough. I'm trying to tell you how great God is through all this, that he would protect me through all this. I ended up going to my MRI about 1:30 or so on Tuesday. This is almost a full 48 hours after the original event. Well, the neurologist had said, don't leave there until they read this. I said, the doctor says, don't leave until you read it. They said, well, we're not going to read it for a few hours. Go back to your hotel and lay down. Well, as it turned out, somehow the ringer on my phone, my cell phone, got turned off. The next thing I know, I got awoken to the hotel room phone going off. It was my beautiful wife, Peggy, suggesting that I should have been answering my phone. And the fact is, I said, I just did answer the phone. She goes, no, not the hotel phone, your mobile phone. I said, well, it hasn't rung. Then I looked at it and found out somehow inadvertently I'd shut off the ringer. I said, why? What's going on? She said, the doctor's office has been trying to get a hold of you. And I said, what's going on? They said, they won't tell me. So call them and then call me back. Well, I called the doctor's office. Needless to say, they weren't too happy that I had left the MRI location. Here were the first words that I got. Get your butt to the hospital. Check into ICU. You've had a stroke. Now, the words weren't quite that kind and quite that nice and with quite that tone. They were pretty upset. Now, I was scared. Because it went from being a migraine, which I knew it wasn't, and it went from a trapped nerve, which I knew it wasn't. But now I knew it was a stroke. Oh my God, I've never had a stroke. I don't even know anything about strokes, other than I know they're not good, and I could be in deep trouble. I walked like a China doll until my friend took me into the hospital. And I walked straight into admissions, and I said, I'm supposed to check into ICU. And I was told that's just not the way it happens. And I said, well, I don't know how it happens, but that's where I'm supposed to be. They said, if it's that important, you need to go to emergency. I had to walk through the hospital to emergency. Now I got back to emergency and I said, I need to check into ICU. They said, that's not the way it happens. Stand in line. There are other people here. I said, I've had a stroke. My doctor said to do this. They finally, about that same time, got a call from my doctor. All of a sudden, I went from being third in line to they found me an emergency room. Well, they started going through the exact same tests again, except this time they had the MRI. They actually had the document, and it showed some pretty severe damage. Well, they checked me into ICU, and that whole event was amazing. Again, they did an amazing job. Nothing but props for the folks at Providence St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank. Truly, I believe part of the miracle is them. Well, they in fact put me into ICU. They scheduled an angiogram. They scheduled all sorts of different tests to verify what was happening. The angiogram, by the way, is going through the artery in your groin, up into your brain with a probe, dropping contrast into your brain. Now, let me just tell you, if all this video does is save anybody from ever having an angiogram, I've done some good. Because once they put um, the contrast in your brain, it's like the 4th of July going off. It's like a light show inside your brain. Again, if I can save you from that, then I've done something. Again, not to scare you. If you need to have it, please have it. I needed to have it. So I just don't ever want to have another one again. I'm going to take care of myself going forward. The point is, they did an amazing job. They found a dissection in a vessel. A dissection is when the inner and the outer wall separate. Well, the inner wall then flaps. When it flapped, it pooled blood. That threw the ischemic stroke. That created the entire stroke and the activity. Here's the bottom line to this, gang. I was in intensive care for 4.5 days or 4 days, and then in telemetry for a couple more days on a telemetry floor. We found a number of different things that they had to fix. They did an amazing job. They put me on the path to healing. But when they said, when the doctors and the physician's assistant and the nurses were outside my ICU room looking at my MRI, going, we don't understand it. Here's a guy that's in there laughing and joking with us. Seemingly nothing's wrong with him. And yet there's 2 other stroke patients on the floor, and their MRIs are not near as bad as his. And yet they're in deep trouble. We don't understand what's going on with him. Well, I understood it completely. And I said that. I said, I understand it. And they said, okay, we'll bite. And they walked inside the room. I said, it's the grace, mercy, and favor of God on my life. And they said, well, that's as good an answer as we have. And that's what it was. Gang, I'm here to wake up. Yes, I'm working to get myself in the best shape of my life for the rest of my life. But I'm also here to serve and save myself and others, physically and spiritually, for the rest of my life. Hopefully, this video helps give you a little understanding. You don't want to go through this. And I can assure you that as much as I know about health and wellness, I didn't know enough about strokes. Every extra pound, we've got about 60,000 miles of blood vessels throughout our body, enough to wrap around the earth 2.4 times. Every extra pound of fat we carries 7 miles of blood vessels. So while I was in great shape and my blood work was wonderful from the nutritional support that I had been taking, and my resting heart rate dropped as low as 47 from time to time and often ran at between 47 and 52, which is excellent. In fact, the doctor said, you're the healthiest sick guy we've ever seen. The fact that I was carrying extra weight because I could was really a silly idea. If I'm carrying 40 extra pounds, that's 280 extra miles of blood vessels in my body. Well, I've started working on shedding those extra miles of blood vessels through shedding that extra weight. Again, if this video helps gain awareness at all that you need to know more, let me tell you the real realization. It came to me when a friend said, I bet your perspective has changed now that you've faced your mortality. And I said, you know what? Mortality is easy. I would have been dead. I would have been dancing with Jesus. I would have been reunited with my mom, my dad, my brother. For me, it was easy. Not so good for my wife. Terrible for my kids. Probably not even great for a friend or two. But the point is, for me, it would be easy. That's not what got to me. It's when I got out of the hospital and my lovely wife Peggy suggested we go to the grocery store so I could do something normal again. And I said, what a great idea. I took a quick shower and brushed my teeth. I put my left leg in my jeans, and as I put my right leg in my jeans, I sat down on the bed. And it hit me. Holy cow. There was a very real possibility that I'd never be able to dress myself again. The thought of being 56 years old and productive one day, to being 56 years old and a burden on my family for the rest of my life was almost more than I could take. That's why I'm committed to serve and save myself and others, physically and spiritually, for the rest of my life. I'm going to be productive and vibrant the rest of my life. And I'm going to share this event and the results and the recovery and the restoration from it all with as many as I possibly can. And if this helps you in any way, God bless, something great has happened out of it. And if I can ever be of service to you, please feel free to contact me at scott@scottschilling.com. I appreciate your time in watching this. Again, if I can answer any questions for you or help you in any way, please feel free to reach out. God bless. Have a great day.